to the Monday edition of the Wellness Movement. So I am Julie. This is the Wellness Movement, and you are watching Spanglish World and her network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please download the Zingo TV app. Remember to leave a review. It's all free. What else? Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku, and Roku Sticks on all smart TVs from 2016 forward. So here on the Wellness Movement, we talk about various aspects of wellness. So it's much more than just physical health or mental health or emotional health, but we dive into all of these different topics. So today I have a very special guest, Bridgette Simmonds, who is a success coach. You work with people who are highly motivated to get big results in their life. So
Absolutely.
welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I always like to, so I think most of us started out doing something else and then kind of got pulled into this space. So what were you doing prior to this version of you? And I love your shirt, by the way.
Thanks. I do too. It actually helps me to embody the warrior within me when I need it, which today I did, especially with my workout this morning. But before, I loved your choice of words of pulled into this space, because pulled I was and continue to be. Prior to that, I was following the well-worn path of success that's dictated by many people besides myself. So I got my degree, got a job in the area of my degree, which in and of itself is odd too, because a lot of times that doesn't happen. But I was working in marketing business development for an insurance corporation for about 15 years before I finally took the bold leap to focus on my craft and my pull full time.
Cool. So what was it that happened that made you want to go in this direction? Because, hashtag entrepreneur life, it comes with its ups and downs. And like a long time ago, I also used to have a job where I had, oh my God, a retirement plan, regular raises. And that's what we're all encouraged. I mean, the school system is all about, you go to school, you acquire a certain number of skills, and then you go out and you get that job. And used to be back in the day, like you were supposed to be at that job for 40 or 50 years, and then you collect your pension and you kick up your feet, and that's how it is, right? But we're not like that.
Not at all. Not at all.
So what happened for you? Because for a lot of people, they do try and what I see is, and just from having conversations with people, is that I see that a lot of people are still trying to do that, what maybe their parents were told to do. And so they're just trying to emulate that. And I can't remember who said these words, but it's like many people live lives of quiet desperation.
Wow. Oh, that breaks my heart, Julie.
Mine too. And they don't break free of that paradigm, because they think that's what it has to be like, the white picket fence, the house, the spouse, the X number of kids, that career, maybe vacations a couple times a year. And it is a certain kind of gilded prison.
Absolutely. And you made me think of the now, big touted interview with Oprah and Prince Harry, how he said he didn't know he was stuck until he realized it. And so many people do live a life in that space. And understandably so. I don't fault them or myself for living in that space, because when we are born into a world, we tend to just follow what's told to us or follow what the peers around us are into and doing, and don't know any different. And they think, okay, this is what I should be doing, I'll do it. If I think I should marry next, okay, I'll marry next. I guess I should have kids, without really, it's not widely taught to ask yourself questions and seek for the answers from within, to know if it's even right for you to do. And so there's so many people that are in spaces and places and parenting that if they really truly understood the power of their own self-truth, they probably would not have chosen those things. So what happened to me is a series of things. I'd say the first event that sparked misalignment, which I can now call it, but I didn't have those words then, was it was shortly after getting the job. I'm in a boardroom meeting in this corporate space, and I'm just looking around and observing other people, which I still love to do. I love to people watch and observe and just watch. And I have a gift of intuition. We all have, but mine is I pick up things and energies and moods and situations. And as I was doing that in this meeting, I'm thinking, they can't be this happy about these numbers and results. I felt a certain falseness in their, oh my gosh, everybody, this week, this month, this quarter. And it would, but it wasn't, I didn't have the words for it. And I felt uncomfortable. I felt like, wow, I'm here. This is where I was told to get to after I got my degree. I suddenly don't feel like I belong, but I also don't know what the option is.
Mhm.
And I took this confusion to a conversation with my mother, and I was like, hey, what is this? And my mom, who I like to call my original life coach, her solution usually when I have a challenge or a problem is to give me a book or an article or something. So she did give me a book, and the book was called To Be Told by Dan Allender. And it's the part of the phrase, your story to be told. And the book is all about how to discover what you were purposed for. And I learned in that space of year one of corporate America that, hey, there are some common threads and themes that are in your life. And that gives you big clues as to what you could be doing with your life, whether or not it's entrepreneurship or not. At least this book was telling you, if you follow these threads and these patterns, you're being true to yourself. They're clues to your alignment of how you were created uniquely. So that was clue number one. And so I got it, I understood it, but then on the outside, I was being very well taken care of by this job. I was getting the raises and the promotions because I was still blooming where I was planted, which in this case was corporate. But I just kept getting signs and signals. So that was first one. Then maybe year 5 or 6, I got shifted into a different company and had a boss that was horrible. So that discomfort of this boss that was horrible, and it was unfounded because I was very well regarded. I do a great job, but no matter what, this person kept trying to find fault, and it would drive me to tears. Then from actually prior to that, I got laid off. So that was year 5 or 6. Then year 7, I get this boss. So you can start to see the patterns looking back, of course, in the moment of experiencing it. I didn't know these were
Well, they
nudges.
always say that hindsight is 2020, right? But when you're in the thick of it, and especially when someone gets laid off, your immediate knee-jerk reaction is, I gotta get a job.
Yes.
I need a job. And just I'll share a personal story. My husband, who's no longer with us, he is descended to the next realm, or ascended, I should say, to the next realm. He had a corporate job that paid him very well, and he was very unhappy. And I wasn't where I am currently in my evolution. And he was given the gift of a layoff back in 2009 with a pretty generous severance. And I remember back then asking him, like, what do you really want to do? Like, do you want to go back to school? Is there something else that's really calling you? And he had that panic thing that so many people have, which was, and especially I think for men, it's different because their identity is wrapped up in, like, I'm the provider. And we're so fortunate that we didn't, like, our bills were going to be paid. I was still working. There was nobody was going to be out on the street anytime soon. And he just couldn't step out of that conditioning long enough to ask those big questions. And I'll try not to cry, but one of the things that really saddens me is that he passed away about 3.5 years later, and he never got to really explore that. And after the fact, I found one of his diaries from when we were traveling in Italy. and he was writing these big questions of like what his purpose was. But in the time that he wrote that entry to the time of his passing, he, even though he saw me like I follow my bliss, like if something doesn't work for me, I'm doing something else. He just never really explored it. And I think so many people are afraid to really pull at that thread and start to follow the clues, because what they're doing is what everybody else around them is doing, and it's so conditioned, you know.
Yes.
So that was, so you got laid off. Coming back to you got laid off, you got the gift of a layoff, and then you had this awful boss, also a gift.
Yes, absolutely. First, I want to honor your late husband's legacy and the gift that he left, and that lesson that he was exploring it. He was on the journey, which I would still celebrate that he was at least exploring, which some don't get to that point.
Yeah.
And so I got laid off, had this awful boss thereafter, because I like you just said, I was like, I gotta get another job. Just that space of uncertainty made me feel like I needed to get some certainty and some security. Got another job, getting paid much less than I was prior to the layoff. So that was humbling in and of itself. And I feel like these were opportunities where I could have jumped, but I wasn't yet fully clear on what the jump was. So I'm not regretting it. Next phase was boss from hell, which then caused me to get bold enough to ask the question of my previous employer, are you hiring? Knowing that someone else was retiring. And so they were. I interviewed, got the job back. And there was a space where I told myself, and I told God, I said, if it's for me to get this job, and it was requiring me to move back to Florida, I was in Georgia at the time. I said, if it's for me, I'll know it's a sign from you, and I'll finally be about the business of my purpose. It was as though there was a part of my soul that remembered the book I read. Now, this is going back 10 years at this point or so, that I had that spark then, and it sat there in the background. But having these series of unfortunate events, I felt like I needed to make a promise that if I was taken away from this boss and given the piece of the other job, I wouldn't just keep repeating the cycle. So that promise was made. It came with ease. The move came with ease. And so I started about the process of discovering, how is it that I'm going to align the knowledge of this common thread of talking to people that I discovered way back in 2001. And now it's 2012, 13. How was I going to align those things? And that's where the journey began for me.
Wow, that's amazing. So what what did you end up doing, like once you were like willing to actually explore that? What did you start to do? Because usually it requires us to learn something that's outside of, and I had to do this myself too. Like I had to go, okay, I don't have this knowledge, so I need to like put myself back in school. And it's interesting because now, even though I have my own business, I'm like always kind of learning something on the side. I'm never
Perpetual
done.
student. Yeah. Never done learning. We're not done until we're gone from this earth, I believe. It's a constant learning. So you're speaking my story. I followed the conditioning, which conditioning said, if you want to do this, you need to get a degree to do it. So I discovered through the book To Be Told by Dan Allender, my common thread was talking to people. So then in my logical mind, A led to B, led to C, meant if talking to people was what I was good at, who talks to people and gets paid? A therapist. Go back to school and get your therapy degree. So I literally followed that path. And then on nights and weekends after corporate job, I went and was getting my degree in psychotherapy. And this is also a testament to when you start along the path of alignment and getting to your true self, it may not be, yay, I found it. I decided to change course and it was a straight line. Absolutely not. Because I could have yet again got my psychotherapy master's and then went ahead and got a job in therapy. But my spirit was not settled. There was still, while I was studying, getting good grades, something inside of me was whispering, this is close, B, but it's not it. And I obeyed that nudge. And so I continued to search. And
Mhm.
I remembered the term life coach. I picked up way, again, 2001, 2, I had a book about life coaching that somebody gifted me. So it's amazing how the guidance is always there. It's just how attuned are you and how much are you paying attention. So I started searching around life coaching while I was still in school, while I was still working full time. Found my coach training program, signed up, and within the first few hours of the first class, what was missing from the program was like it was like a brick hit me, like, this is it. This is the piece that was missing. There was everything about coaching that I loved. And although psychotherapy and coaching are on this in the same helping profession, the space on the human continuum that they meet each other just spoke to my spirit more, where coaches help where there's satisfaction with life, but wanting to take it to the next level, whereas therapists help when there's a breakdown. And while I could help people where there's a breakdown, my biggest and brightest gift is helping the people that you just talked about that are in this perpetual state of suffering, but they're doing all right and they can live the rest of their life like that. But there's just this dull hum of there has to be more to life than this, that if they're willing to pull that thread that you talked about, that a lot of people are afraid of, and the pulling of the thread is meeting me or you as a coach to really see the spool just spin into this space of amazement that a lot of people aren't really sure is
Mhm.
possible to live life so beautifully and alive.
Well, they have to be open to life kind of imploding or exploding a little bit and then coming together. And I think most people are avoiding that. And
Yes.
so they stay in this like low level, like hum. And this is where, people develop uh, issues with alcohol, with food, with drugs, with any number of shopping, like any number of things to help quiet that hum, that uneasiness within them that is like, hey, like, remember you had this thing that you wanted to do. And to quiet that voice, they pick up all of this other stuff. And it actually makes the situation even worse. And sometimes if they're lucky, there's like some kind of a crisis, like a layoff,
Yeah.
illness,
Yes.
or death.
Mhm. You
Yeah.
nailed it. I always say we can either do things in life by choice or by force,
Mhm.
but either way, it's going to happen. And choice, I always equate it to health, that we can either choose on our own volition to eat healthfully or not. And if we don't, after a point of time, you'll be forced to do so if you want to live by, like you said, illness or death or some sort of shakeup and wake up call. And I don't know about you, Julie, but I would much rather be have my hand on the detonator of blowing up my life. Like I blew up my life, and it was scary as all get out.
Oh
But
my God.
but as the short said, there I'm a warrior, and at the same time, I knew if it didn't work out for some reason, I could always go back to the place I was afraid to leave, but felt so compelled that I had to. It was a must.
I hear you. I'm all about, I've probably blown up my life several times. And I follow that uneasiness pretty closely. Like if something starts to like niggle at me, I'm like, it's interesting because right around this time we are in our household having conversations about uprooting. And it's funny because like initially I was a little bit like, hey, we have a pretty good life, we're pretty comfortable. And now I'm like, I've let go. I'm like, yes, I know it's
Mhm.
time. I know this is not where we're meant to be. I know we need to explore. And all I said to my partner is this. I said, I feel like we came to this house, to this part of the world because we were getting away from something we really didn't like. So I feel like that's not a powerful enough way to create your life. So I said, for this next evolution, can we just be much more conscientious about like, what do we want to create? What is the life we're looking for? What is our vision? Because that's not a question we asked 5 years ago when we moved here. We didn't ask what's our vision. We just were like, we don't like the city. It's too noisy. There's too much construction in our neighborhood. We got to get the heck out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's not that to me is not an empowering choice. Empowering is like, hey, like, what do we want to do? And I actually told him, I say we get out of Dodge like over the winter. Like I say we, sell everything, put whatever we want in storage and just leave the country, go somewhere warm, and maybe we come back when there's something to come back to.
Listen, that type of living and exploring and let's see, so many are so afraid to do. And there's so much joy in that. There's so much freedom in that. That's a lot of people get it twisted and confused around what's our life purpose. It's not one singular activity you do until you die. Our life purpose is to enjoy life. End of story, period. And you're either enjoying life or you're not. And the signals for which let you know you are or not is your emotions. Feeling at peace, feeling happy, feeling joyful. And just like you mentioned, running away from something has a different energy altogether than running towards something. And even if you don't know what you're running towards, it still has a different energy than running away from something. And that served you for 5 years ago when you needed to get away from it. Okay, great. And now what's next? So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And I think that's the other thing is also like, I'm sure you must know Tony Robbins' work.
Yes, I follow it. I love it.
I think most of us that are in this space of like up leveling our life have listened to something or gone to a course or something has happened like where we've come across that man and his words. But he's always saying you're either growing or you're dying.
Yeah, that's
right?
it.
And I think like for me, like if I think back to my own personal evolution, I was for quite a while, even once I left sort of that guaranteed pension and cushy job with the regular pay wages, and I first kind of stepped out on my own. Even then, it was like I got the skills and I was doing this thing and I was making money at it, and I thought, okay, well, I'm good, because I still had that old programming of you learn something, you get a degree or you get a certification, and that's what you do. And then it took a few more years for me to really realize that, in order for me to kind of like step into my best version, I have to be open to growth and expansion.
Yeah.
And learning and working with different people, and not everything I'm studying is necessarily the thing that I'm going to be making money at, but at least I'm learning, right? Like so much of the stuff that I do outside of my job is just for myself.
Yeah, which is people, it's a hard concept to grasp that if you do what you just said, learn for you, create for you, dance for you, sing for you, cook for you, there is no greater attraction, a point of attraction and light that glows with such warm love than when a person is completely turned on by life and by the things that they love. And then when they take that turn on and then share it, that's the intention of the way that the world is supposed to work. That there's been so many generations and stories that are unfounded and frankly not true, that say, oh, well, that's selfish to focus on yourself first, or I'm forgetting everybody else, or any of the number of stories that just simply are not true. I always think about people that are entertainers in this space that do it very, very well, and why people pay numbers of dollars and go in before COVID and after COVID, hopefully soon, that go into arenas and pack them out to watch a person in their element of entertainment is because that is a person experiencing the highest space of joy. And if they're doing it in full alignment and they're not in a space where they're empty inside, because sometimes that happens, which is a whole nother story. But if they're really in a space, we can feel that and we connect to the part of us that may not be an entertainer in that space, but we connect to the part of us that feels so lit up that if we were able to and trusted ourselves to dance in that way, people would gather around us. It may not be an arena, but it may be it's the part of your world that you're supposed to light up. And it may be just your household, it may be your community, it may be a larger stage, but either way, you learn for you, Julie. And when you learn and you're like, I'm learning, and you're excited, that energy is attractive to people and they want to be around it.
So it's so funny because, I mean, obviously I'm a health coach and I'm a nutritionist, but I was at an event yesterday and I said, I've been geeking out over this stuff since I was a teenager. For some bizarre reason that only the heavens know, I was reading about cholesterol. I mean, come on, cholesterol, HDL and LDL cholesterol, when I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I was reading about the effects of dairy on people and why humans, especially people with my skin tone, should not have dairy. And I remember telling my mom, and she was like, she just thought I was weird. and and then I went on this, journey of going to school and getting the degree and getting the job and, finding the person and getting married and getting the house and like this whole like wild journey. And now I'm kind of like back to that stuff that I was doing when I was a kid.
Isn't it amazing how we come full circle and how the kid always knew? That's why I always say that the most elevated form of parenting is to give birth to whatever human you give birth to. Sit back, watch what's just naturally coming out of that human, and then fan those flames and pour into it and elevate it and expand it and find avenues for it to be broadened. But most, and again, not out of a place of malice, just raised the way we were raised and so on and so forth, is that we want the best, and the best tends to get dictated and then followed. And there's this point of truth that there's a string to that we could meander so far away, following everyone else's and society's thoughts about what it is. But if we allow it, it'll just snap us right back to it. Because if you were to ask me when I was a little girl what I wanted to be when I grew up, my answer, teacher. And then I started growing older, listening to things outside of me. My dad was always saying, you're going to be a doctor when you grow up. Had no business even trotting down that path. I'm so afraid of bodily fluids. I'm no help to you if an emergency broke out. It ain't my calling. It's not, I don't care. But this is the thing where people have a vision of success and want you to be successful. So therefore you are going to be this, or you should be this, or follow this. If we were paying attention, and here I am, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach. Yeah. So, but I also am grateful for my meanderings and my journeys and having gone away from it, because I can relate to the thousands of people who also have, and let them know that you can fully trust your path back and that it supports you in the highest.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So do you work primarily with people who are starting to pull at that thread?
Yes, I love that visual. Yes, I do. I work with the people that have probably run to the end of that thread, and they kind of feel it, that little, like, if you had a thread to you and you kind of feel that like, oh, and then they're like, there's got to be more to life than this. And they may be turning around to pull on that thread, or they feel the tension of I've gone as far as I can possibly go. I really have no true desire to grow in this space anymore. I.e., for me, it was climbing the corporate ladder. I had no desire, no want to, and it didn't mean I was lazy. It didn't mean I wasn't ambitious. It just meant I was in the wrong space. Yeah. So yeah, I love to work with people who've reached the point of success in the space they thought was where they should be, and
Mhm.
feeling a little dismayed, or feeling like the outside checklist items don't match the inside. Like they may look by all appearances like you've made it, girl or guy, but inside they're like, there's so much more of me that I
Yeah.
have yet to explore and express.
So what would you say are the early warning signs? Because like you were saying earlier, it's like one of the things that I have learned on my life's journey is that I try and heed those signs as early as possible, because pardon the phrase, but I've had the experience of being bitch slapped awake,
I love it.
and it's brutal. It is brutal because things explode and implode in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I would also say that one of the gifts in my life is having a daily spiritual practice. And so having a spiritual practice means that I never veer that far off. I'm not really listening to what people around me are saying or doing because it's none of my business. My business is to just follow my heart and my soul. But for people who may not have that connection, like what are those early warning signs?
Oh, such a great question. So one is like if you've driven a car that is not in alignment, it tends to veer to one side or the next without correction of the steering wheel. And I liken that to, because it takes a lot of energy to keep that steering wheel straight because it wants to go in one way or the other. And if you let it go in either one way or the other out of alignment, it's going to crash. So in order to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, exhaustion is a huge red flag, outside of things I'm sure you can talk to around nutrition, but
Mhm.
that typically goes hand in hand, because usually if we're not feeding ourselves spiritually and mentally and emotionally, nutritionally, then we typically follow that physically.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling just tired, you're getting plenty of sleep and plenty of rest, maybe even you're eating correctly and working out, but you're feeling exhausted, that's a huge red flag, or it's a huge signal. Hey, check in. Another thing is if you just don't feel inspired, it's Sunday and the thought of tomorrow being Monday and you have to do it all over again doesn't excite you, and that happens for many, many Mondays, if not all Mondays, seek within.
Mhm.
Another is to really think about if you feel bored or if you're tolerating certain things, if you just feel like you're existing day to day, just drifting through life and it's all right, but not like, woohoo, at least in any corner of your life, seek inwards. And I would say another one would be if you feel to some degree your life is a lie.
Mhm.
Meaning, if someone were to ask, Is so and so successful? That outward appearances would say, oh, yeah, they're living their best life because you got the house, the car, the handbags, all the things. But if inside you don't feel successful or you don't feel fulfilled, that misalignment in that space of being disjointed externally versus internally is another huge clue that you might be out of alignment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so what does one do if and okay, actually before we go there, like is it like a question of one of those things being out of alignment or just like this accumulation of or
Yes, and both, all things. It could be one, it could be all of those that you checked. Yes, yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. Or it could just be one thing. Um, Typically, and life is meant to have, just like weather, some days it's sunny, some days it's cold and blustery. So our emotions are like that. It's unrealistic and silly to expect to constantly be in a state of joy and bliss and happiness. Even us people that follow Tony Robbins or our coaches are not constantly in a space of yay, because then we couldn't appreciate that space if we didn't know the darkness. There's a law of polarity that has to exist.
Mhm.
So that's not what I'm saying. So I want to make sure I qualify that there's no expectation to be in a consistent state of bliss. That's not life or living. It's a matter of if there's this dull ache and this sense of desire for more, and maybe you don't know what the more is or where to begin, that's
Mhm.
okay. But if it's any one of those things I just mentioned, being tired, feeling out of alignment, feeling like you're living a bit of a lie, dreading Mondays, definitely a time to seek something different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny what a bad rap Mondays get,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I mean, there's like a whole culture on hating Mondays, and it's like, if you hate Mondays, like maybe you need to look at what are you doing?
Right. Take that energy you used to talk trash about that day of the week and explore something different.
Yeah. And so what would be like the first sort of way that someone who's like feeling that like that can start to, sorry, I've got a guest here.
You want to know as well. She's like, I want to hear this. The way she's looking. So sweet. Oh.
So what would be like the first thing someone can do to get started on the path? Because it is a journey. Like once you realize that, like I know for myself, like when I made that hard stop and shifted, like it was a journey. It's not like I just woke up and the next day it was all figured out, right?
Yeah. And I love that you just said stop. That's the first step, is stop the madness and acknowledge it. I think the first step in finding out finding out what else I could do besides suffer was sharing it with my mom. Was the first one back in 2001. So if what I've shared is a symptom you're experiencing, just stop and acknowledge it. Even if it's writing down, if you're not a journaler, if you are, just write down or type in your phone how I feel and just go on a rampage of how you feel.
Mhm.
And if and get it out. And then I would say, secondly, to share it with someone, either a trusted friend or a therapist or a coach or all of the above, to just share, because processing it helps to really feel acknowledged and validated that you are not insane.
Mhm.
And then I would say to be on a journey after you acknowledge it and then share that acknowledgement of, I feel this way. I don't feel right. I feel off. I feel incomplete, whatever words you use. After that, then the question becomes, and what do I want to do about it?
Mhm.
And so that is then a very individual journey, because what you may want to do about it may require therapy, because perhaps it does require a space of breakdown that you need professional help with, whether it could be a number of things. Or if you're at a space where you want to explore future casting and creation, therapy can help there, but coaching is very fantastic at what do you want? How do you get from where you are to where you want to be? And also helping you to determine what I even want next, because you know, whether or not you feel like you know or not, you know, and the magic of coaches is we pull that out of you just by conversation. You may think you're just saying whatever you want to say. I like, no, for me, when I was struggling and feeling extremely out of alignment, there was something I used to always say that I did not realize I always said until a coach pointed it out, because we coaches are like mirrors to you. And that thing I used to say was, oh, I just want to own my days. Oh, I just want to own my days. It was my equivalent to I hate Mondays, right? So I
Right.
didn't say that because I don't like to say that, because then it comes back at you and hits you in the face. But I used to say, oh, I just want to own my days. And so when a coach finally asked me, Bridgette, whatever do you mean by that?
Mhm.
Stopped me in my tracks. I thought, no one's ever asked me that.
Yeah.
Wow. And suddenly had to define what I meant by this statement I kept making, because clearly the wisdom inside of me knew that was something I was after in order to honor my value of freedom.
Mhm.
But until I flesh it out, it just becomes this mantra or this repeated phrase that means nothing, that I can maybe do nothing about until I get clarity. Clarity is power. So I would say, acknowledge it, tell somebody, decide if you want to do something about it, because you have a choice not to. because some people are too fearful too comfortable too.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. 10 years later, you may have this feeling again to do something with. And if you do want to do something about it, seek a coach to seek some clarity on what's next, and then hold you accountable for taking the steps to actually moving toward it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I would have to say that accountability is huge. Accountability is the be all and the end all, because a lot of people have, when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, you're going to come up against so much fear that having someone who can ask you questions and keep you accountable and keep tracing you back to what it is that you said you wanted, that's going to help you to move forward. But if otherwise, it's so, I mean, I feel bad for people because I think so many people don't live up to their potential. And even if they have an idea of where they want to go, they won't even take a step in that direction because there's so much fear attached to it. And so what are your thoughts around like overcoming the fear and the self-doubt? Because I think that's the other part of it is a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah, it's so real, and it can be as heavy and debilitating as we allow it to be. And that's why, exactly as you said, accountability is paramount. For me, when I was at that space of a crossroads of staying in my corporate job that was extremely comfortable, afforded me a great, wonderful life, or making a step in uncharted territory that just I felt pulled to go toward without knowing everything about it. The number one reason why I was able to choose that path that was dark and unknown was because of coaching. If I did not employ outside reinforcement, I would still be working in corporate America. I would not know who the heck Julie Brar was, and we would not be having this conversation. I would be waking up on a Monday, going at it again, and feeling that dull hum of there's got to be more to life than this. So to overcome that self-doubt and fear, it can be done alone. Anything can be done alone, but more quickly, deeply, and for sure, getting support is critical. Having a coach, having someone in your corner who is aware of where you want to go next. And like you said, accountability. You said you were going to take this step. What happened? And not only that, but we humans have this thing within us, this code to honor what we've said we are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to do it more so than if we were to just tell ourselves it, and we're holding ourselves accountable because we let ourselves down left and right. So having that outside person who helps us to break down the steps into small enough steps as well helps to eliminate that self-doubt as well. Because if the step that you think you need to take is too big, then you're definitely not going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But making it small and bite-sized, having an outside accountability, knowing that feeling the freaking fear is normal. Normalize that crap. A lot of people think that feeling means stop, and it means you're doing something wrong. And I'm like a big proponent of making it normal. Yes, you're going to have butterflies in your stomach. Yes, your heart will be palpitating. When I quit my job, my heart was doing literal flips in my chest. It felt like something was wrong. I went to a heart specialist. I was only 38. And he's like, "You've never had any heart issues before?" I'm like, "No, doc, but you got to check on this because something's not right." Hooked me up to this heart monitor. I had to wear it for a week. And every time it did the flip thing, I had to notate it on this phone. I go back. I'm like, "What's the report? What did you see?" He's like, "Bridge, there's nothing wrong with you. Did you tell me that you just quit your job?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's what it is. It's all here." And he was an older gentleman. And he said, "Get out there and go kill it, kiddo." And after that, heart palpitation stopped. I was still extremely nervous, unsure, and scared, as prepared as I could be. So that's another thing I would say is, besides normalizing it, getting support, making it bite-sized steps and baby steps so that you can just take the babiest of steps and celebrate. Just like how baby steps take baby steps. They're wobbly, they fall down on their butt, but everyone around them is like, "Yay!" And it's that, "Yay!" okay. That makes the little baby take another step and another step. And we still have to do that, though we're big old babies, okay? Baby steps, support and accountability, knowing that you're going to feel nuts, crazy, nervous. It may even physiologically present itself. That does not mean stop. It means you're doing the exact right thing. Setting up safety nets, whether it's savings and money that makes you feel safe enough to still keep stepping forward and forward and forward. And oh my gosh, before you know it, you look back and you're like, wow, what was I even afraid of? And now it's time to grow some more because you'll continue growing. But it's the
funny
most.
because like I will also attest that one of the shifts that I made on my journey happened to be because I was working with a coach. And so for years, I taught yoga, and it was a very comfortable and lucrative business for me. I never really had to beg for classes. Like I actually had to turn down work. And so it was very, very comfortable. But at the time, my husband and I were living in Vancouver, and I was an actor along with this yoga thing. And I really wanted to write and create my own projects because I felt that the types of things I was going out for didn't speak to me. And yet I was kind of petrified of like creating my own work. And it's a lot to pull a crew together. And so I was actually working with a coach, and she was the one who got me motivated and focused enough to take some of the scripts that I had written and start creating my own projects. And I don't think I could have done it without her, because she was, and in fact, for one of the things I shot, her and her family were traveling to New York for, I guess, a summer break or whatever. And she actually trusted me enough to take over her house and film.
Wow.
And it was just what I needed. And of course, now, years later, right, I've done several projects and I always like have something on the go on the side. But I needed that person to kind of support me and encourage me and say, just kind of give me what I needed to start to explore that aspect of my creativity. And
Yes.
I can tell you from an acting standpoint, if you're just an actor, it's a very disempowering place because you're waiting for your phone to ring and it may not ring, or the things that you're offered might not be what you want. And so being able to write scripts, tell stories, or have some other ways to explore your creativity is incredibly empowering and actually attracts the very opportunities that you are looking for. So at least that's been my experience.
I love that. That's such a great story and such a testament. Two things I gleaned from that is one, having the person to cheer you on, to see you through it is critical. And even if we take the example of babies walking, I don't know that I've ever known a baby that's birthed itself and started walking on its own. It's typically surrounded by very encouraging and supportive cheerleaders that are there to catch them if they fall, and to also to expend that energy of you can do it that a coach does to big babies like us. And the second thing I gleaned from your amazing story is, though your space is film and that creation, we are all creators of our own life, whatever that is. Whether my creation is that I'm a math whiz and things are very technical for me, that's still creativity. And a lot of people mistake creativity for only being things in the arts, like what you specialize in. But what I love about your understanding of being an actor, of which we all are as well, in the own play of our lives, is a lot of folks are waiting for the phone to ring to tell them where to be and what to do, which could be their call with their jobs that they're dying in, or they're just given jobs and they take them to make ends meet, which is essentially what we are as actors. But when you decided, Julie, to take control of your creation, that we all can take control of our creation if we liken creation to the experience we have of life, that elevates and magnetizes opportunities that are more aligned with what lights us up and makes us feel amazing.
Mhm.
And I'm sure it was scary for you to do that in your own real world of filmmaking, as this is as scary as it is for us to do it in the real world of life making.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's incredible.
And then after a while, it's like you were saying, you look back and go, what was I afraid of? Right. And now, of course, it's like if I wanted to do a project, I know who to call, I know how to make it all happen and all of that. But I think the thing for everyone to understand is that life, well, it's, I'm sure you know this saying too, is like life is not happening to us, it's happening for us. And that we are all co-creators of our life. And so we're responsible for everything that you like in your life, you created that. And for everything that you don't like in your life, you created that.
Yeah. And you can always recreate at any moment.
Yeah. So how can, because we got to wind down, how can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Bridgette the Go Coach. That's BRIDGETTE, the Go Coach, as well as, let's see, Facebook, same name, Bridgette the Go Coach. LinkedIn, I'm there too as Bridgette Simmonds with a silent D in Simmons, SIMMONDS. And those are all the spaces. So as well as my website, bridgettethegocoach.com.
Yeah. So it's cool because the way that this call is set up, they can see your name in the bottom left.
Oh, great.
And so you can, and of course, like once everything is up on YouTube, we'll have that there as well. So it's, I hope that everybody who watches this conversation gets excited about their life. And if they're not so excited about their life, that they start to ask those deeper questions that like, these are all the things we did not learn in school.
That we sure should have. Okay, it should be mandatory learning before you get out of elementary. Who are you? Why are you here? What lights me up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So simple, sometimes harder to answer than we think, always changing and being reiterated all throughout our life, but always an amazing journey if we're willing to embark on it.
Yeah. And it can also be, it's funny because I'm going to be doing something next month that's a little bit scary.
Ooh.
And but it's also a real opportunity for evolution. And I actually woke up in the middle of the night in a bit of a panic. I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to call it off. Like, I don't think I can do it. And then I actually had to talk myself off the ledge and go, okay, I need to shift my thinking. I need to reframe this whole situation and really ask myself, like, why there was something in me that called me to do this and to say I wanted to do this. And so I just have to like reframe and remind myself every single day as I lead up to this April adventure that that I'm choosing this and why I'm choosing this, and that it can be potentially fun, and I know it's going to be fulfilling in the long run. It's going to be worth it. And so I hope anyone who watches this is open to kind of shifting and reframing their life and their perspective. And I'm so honored that you came and you had this conversation, because I'm like, oh, it's so exciting. So I'm just gonna, sorry.
I was saying it is, and I'm so honored to share this space with you, Julie, and just thank you for inviting me and having me.
Yes, thank you. So thanks to everybody who tuned into the episode. Remember, you can check out spanglishworld.ca, and Spanglish World, you want to watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. I am so honored to share this time with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Indeed.